Welcome to Be Simply. This is Suzanne Toro, and I want to thank you all for joining us today. We have special guest Rae Indigo. She is a remarkable woman, a master yogi, an innovator, and a founder of Formula Flawless. Today, we're going to dive into the world of emotion, consciousness, and so much more. Without further ado, let's dive in with Rae. Welcome you. I'm so happy that you're here today. Excited to connect with you. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to see you. I feel like it's been a long time. It's been like almost a year, hasn't it?
Some probably, I don't know, space and time are a mystery to me at this point. It seems like we've gone into a gap for these past couple of years. So now we're coming out of it. So I was feeling into you, this conversation today, and wanted to chat with you a little bit about, the power between, your, from my perspective, you're at a master level of your teaching as a teacher, as a maestro. And, there's what I witness in the world right now is that we're probably coming to this cool era where you have generations, and we'll fully lead into where we return of the elders, where we would listen to the elders, masters, the elders. And what I'm witnessing a lot is in the younger generation, we've never had this where it's really accessible for them to get information rapidly. So I would say the potential downfall to that is they grab, read, regurgitate, and don't embody. And so therefore they are a self-elected expert about a topic that maybe they've memorized. So
Yeah.
yeah. So, and obviously, like with yoga, it meets everyone in this lifetime how it's destined to meet them. But I'd love for you to start off to share a little bit about the power of and the need for correction, and the need for just a willingness to be a student in that process where sometimes our ego can get in the way, where we think we know something, so our fire might come up, and we don't want to receive that. But what's the power in that correction for anyone in any field, really?
It's nice that people have access to so much information, as you said. Like it's really right at the fingertips, and we've never had that before. The difficulty is that people don't handle challenges well anymore. They're very, very fragile, and anything that kind of corrects or confronts, a lot of students break. So as a teacher, it's very hard to move quickly with people because you have to act so tenderly, so because one strong word, one strong. I'm a trained by martial artists and yogis, and sometimes the yogis were the hardest, honestly. But you got very strong corrections, and it was done not to make you like wrong or bad. It was done to actually improve you. But over the last decade, I've found that the amount of intensity or force that can use in teaching people, it's so little, and it's not to the benefit of the student. Now, what will come of this? I don't really know, but what I see so much, especially in the spiritual, world, uh, that is that the actual teachers who are well known and famous are they don't have a lot of skills, and oftentimes the reason you always have to look, what's the reason why this person is teaching? Oftentimes the reason is because they want attention. They don't have, and as a teacher you're supposed to give attention. You're supposed to place your attention, your admiration, your focus on the other person, not to need to receive it. So um, I'm seeing a lot of that. I'm seeing the the confusion about your abilities. Like people are very, they follow their emotions as if the emotions are the most important thing, because we come out of eras of repressing emotions. So it's kind of swung the other way. And
Right.
the answer is not to repress, but it's also not to follow them, because at a level they are self-generated, and that's very hard for people to see, that they're generating their own emotional states because they can't see the mechanism. Um, so you have people that have a lot of strong emotions, that believe that they're very important, and who don't have a lot of resiliency in the emotional body. And then they come across, they have a lot of ideas to access, and so the tendency will be to select for the ideas that essentially kind of fill or feed your idea, your construct about the universe. So you don't really get a lot of improvement. And you can see this in people that go to like work through trauma, which is a lot of the work that I do, is working with trauma, people that are in a really bad state. And they've been doing trauma work forever, but there's no improvement. Well, why?
Yeah.
Why? Something's wrong here. It's like you go for a surgery or you go to get something fixed, and there's no improvement. You come out with the same problem, sometimes worse. Well, this is not, something is off in the way the information is being given, and the idea that people have. So I see this a lot. It makes it very hard to work as a teacher, because um, any any miscalculation of intensity will lead to people really attacking you.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, it's like because there's so many people that are working in this profession now, so many teachers, which weren't always. It was a real life path.
Right.
um if anybody offends them a little bit, they just go to another, and it's like you lose. The best teachers I know are they're challenging. My teachers
Right.
were, oh my God, my one teacher, until you cry and puke on your yoga mat, that was like, let's get it out. But we
Yeah.
don't do that anymore. And I think that something is really lost, because the time is lost of the practitioner. If you have an
Right.
intense teacher and move you through your problems quickly, then you can get to the other side of living, where the problems are not really there, or you know how to solve things. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Absolutely. Well, and speak a little deeper to that, because what when you're talking about emotions, and uh, people are almost like excited. There's the spectrum. There's people that maybe are really good at emotions and have been good at emotions all their life, meaning they might be over emotive. And then you have the person that sequestered it off, maybe because of trauma, they needed to move forward. That was too much to heal. And really, humanity ideally is coming to the middle point, because that then we can, since you're a martial artist, we can be in that center point without, having our boat rocked by any mechanism, especially that emotional body. If you can share a little bit more about interrelations for people, whether it's a personal partnership or business relationship or student to teacher, where emotions come up, but they're not meant to always occupy the time of so much that, it like creates the dishevel. Like, imagine if you're teaching in a class and students like, I have to cry and I need to be heard and all this stuff, versus allowing the emotions to ride within self, or maybe even within your students in the class, where you're not maybe reactive to them. Also becomes a tennis match sometimes. If you can just share a little bit about that, how to integrate the emotional cues into our personal relationships.
Well, when it comes to teaching, if I'm teaching a course, unless that course is particularly kind of like processing emotional body, it's not really the appropriate place for there to be a large emotional outburst. And so what I personally do is usually work with the person privately, or recommend another practitioner that has skilled, so that the person can enjoy the actual material of the course. Now, of course, if I'm teaching something that is to work through emotions, which I also like lead, that's more like a facilitation. I wouldn't say teaching, it's facilitating. Then, of course, the emotions coming up and out is very appropriate. Um, I think that the big issue is that we have to have a good definition of the word emotion. Yeah, because you say the word emotion, everybody kind of knows what you're indicating, but we have to define it very clearly as to what is this emotion. So you have different layers of your being, different layers of density, and the emotional body is one layer of density, and it's usually created um, for a lot of people that I see walking the planet right now out of their past kind of impacts that they've had in their life. And by an impact, I mean something that hits you. Something that hits you can be words from another, it can be a physical trauma, it can be many, it can be a really excellent positive event that also kind of stuck with you and gave you a nostalgia. So what happens is that you have a being that's in the present moment, and they like if we can just think about, so let's look at the scenario of someone getting a phone call from their boss. Now, if you're in a high frequency emotional state, you can think about this, that like it's like almost like you're putting out a lot of really light particles, and they're fast, and so anything that kind of comes in to that, like a motion or a movement or communication that comes in, you're able to respond, and it doesn't really affect you too much. But now let's say you're in a depressed state or a frustrated state or like a lower frequency emotional state. You get the same phone call, and you're not feeling good. You get a call from your boss that says, "Oh, I need you to handle this." You feel put upon, you feel frustrated, all this stuff comes up. It's just a normal request, yeah. If you're in the other state, you're in that higher frequency state, you're feeling joyous, you're feeling enthusiastic, and your boss calls you and says, "Hey, I need you to handle this." You're like, "Oh, okay, no problem." So what is it? So how do we define an emotion? This is what I've found as a working definition. It's your response to motion, to incoming motion from the universe. How it comes in, how do you respond, and how much stuff is generated in between you going to take an action area, from the initiation, "Oh, I have to do this," to the fulfillment. Most people are having so many emotional storms. They might not even see it because it's so normal. That's just how I am. I live with a low grade frustration every day, or I kind of feel hopeless and depressed. Well, that person who has these stories inside of them, which they feel are very valid and very true and very justified from all their past experience, someone who has that, any incoming stuff will essentially work like they're resisting it. It'll hit them and they'll resist that instead of allowing the information to come in. You'll see this in as a manifestation of when people are in these lower states, they'll consider themselves an introvert. Yeah, introversion, extroversion is not a fixed thing. It's just
Yeah.
that when your attention is so much in your past and then you go to communicate with other people, it's like you're trying to pull yourself with all this effort to the present, and it's hard because you're not actually present. You're not able to be with the others. The past in essence is louder, and you're dragging it in front of you and putting it in every interaction, and that's the emotional states of the people are having now: anger, frustration, depression, sadness, fear, and grief. These are not good conditions. That doesn't mean we don't have them come up when there's a
Yeah.
legitimate thing that happens, but they get stuck, and so now a person will lead with their grief, or lead with their fear, or lead with their anger, or lead with their boredom, lead with their, and so, but that's not any more real than another person who's leading with joy. It's just that one feels and creates a better life. One feels better in life, and one creates a better life. Does that make sense? A little bit about the emotions?
Absolutely. So share a little bit for listeners about how to get unstuck. Because we're coming out of this I call it the brouhaha on planet Earth. So there's a lot of entitlement. We led into this experience, several years prior to the brouhaha, with a lot of entitlement, a lot of, division. So if we get past, because our stuff, then we can start to like harmonize, versus always in this like push pull tension.
Well, there's kind of two different approaches or way to touch it. Yeah. One is to find a way to, I call it karmic clearing practices. One way to view the past using a very specific format that doesn't make it more loud, more stimulated. It actually brings you the truth of a situation, which causes the emotions to kind of fall out of it. You have the memory perfectly, but all that charge that a lot of people are actually addicted to, they need the charge to get them moving. They're addicted to the charge. When that charge falls away, you find that you're just fine. Yeah, so there's that set of processes which usually take some facilitation because our tendency when we start to view those is to then go into them deeper and now become overwhelmed a bit, so that has to be facilitated. So and those are extremely useful, but you can think about them a bit like an emotional detox. Then the other set of practices are essentially where you create intentionally with effort, and the less effort the better, but at first it might take quite a bit, a different like state that you hold. Now both practices are you need to have, both sets of information are necessary, but the second thing is something that's very safe. The other one is not so safe. You need to have a really good practitioner to guide you through it and to spot anything where you jump out or you jump into something. They have to be able to catch it and kind of bring you back through the process. The second one is we can use like the meditative sciences for this. One of the easiest things, and this will be very revealing to those who haven't done it before, because the first time you try to do it, it tends to be rather hard. Not because it's a hard meditation, what I'm going to give is very easy, but because it will show you how much your attention is jumping into judging yourself, feeling bad about something, like all this negative stuff that you might not be seeing. The moment I ask you to do this meditation, which is only for 1 minute, that will come up at first. So what you do is you bring yourself to just a comfortable and easy seated position. This can be on the ground, on a bench, on a chair. And, obviously correcting the posture a little bit, leaning back so that the front body is open will allow the diaphragm to move so that you're taking in air into the bottom of the lungs. Now, breathing into the bottom of the lungs gives you a much greater ability to relax and to feel that you're not suffocating. Yeah, I won't create an anxious state. So correct the posture, sit up, and you sit down, and for 1 minute, you kind of imagine that your field was just like this little bubble of pleasantness. And I oftentimes use the term atmosphere. You create the internal atmosphere using intention and using all your abilities to just become pleasant. Now, what is pleasant? Pleasant is like when you have enough money in your bank account, you have enough food in your house, you're having no turmoils in your relationships, you just met someone that you find very interesting, and you're sitting outside on a perfect day, whatever that means for you, with the perfect conditions in the sun or not in the sun, and you just feel like it's good to be alive for a moment. This is what I mean by pleasantness. There's no problems. It's not overly happy. It's not a stimulated state. It's like a neutral state plus a sweetness. And so you create this internal atmosphere and you hold it just for 1 minute. Now, an entire eternity, the first time you try it for most people, there's an eternity that occurs, and you're fine for like 2 or 3 seconds. Then you're like, well, what is pleasantness really? And your mind comes in. And then it's like, but I'm really worried about that email I have to send. And all this stuff will come up, and you just have to remind yourself for only 1 minute. Mind, I'm not following you for only 1 minute. Yeah. After that minute, you can go into whatever you want. For just 1 minute, you sit and you hold that atmosphere of pleasantness. So you're learning to consciously generate an emotional state of a clear and high, or we would say in yoga, sattvic, harmonic frequency, and you're doing it consciously because all the emotions you're creating, you are doing them. You just don't see the mechanism. So this is one step in beginning to take kind of control of this emotional mechanism, which is causing so much loss in life, so much the missing of connections, the missing of the moment because of some emotional state that is no more real than another emotional state.
Mm. Yep, absolutely. Aho.
Does that make sense? So you just
Yeah.
practice this.
Aho.
when when the minute's over, you can decide to keep that, pleasant atmosphere, or you can let it go. But you practice this kind of a couple times a day, and what you will see is that bit by bit, the desire to jump into stories will become a little bit relinquished. And it's a very, if you get the skill of it, it's a really nice way to kind of bring yourself back when,
Yeah.
when an emotional storm takes you. So it's one of my favorite practices, and it's only 1 minute.
Yeah, absolutely. Just you describing it, you know, brought me there. So that's, a nice thing.
Excellent.
Well, and as you were speaking, share the value, because I see this a lot, especially in, online, just passing by, but in where there's spiritual teachers or yoga teachers, uh, or relationship coaches. It seems like it's a big trend to try
Yes.
to have conscious relationships, and I'm like, well, but I'm just having one with myself, But uh, if you can share a little bit about, you know, the interdependence that exists within us, and especially in a spiritual practice, how it is a very intimate place that we go with ourselves, and then this is my words, but the result of it then potentially pleasantly impacts the world around you if you're headed in the right direction. You're making efforts that are for the benefit of self and others. I guess my question for you is, when people get over attached that they have to talk everything through, that we can get to a resolve internally and meet the same situation, but just like you gave the example with the phone call, with a different perspective, without having to burden, because my burden might not be your burden. So I might be like, Ray, I have to talk to you about this. And you're like, what the heck? And I just wasted like an hour and a half of your day on something that really I could have processed myself. Or if I did need, an external person to help me. So if you can share a little bit about the value of learning to trust self and be interdependent, and then how the world might seem a little different to everyone versus putting the burden on external relationships.
Well, so there's different, yeah, give me the easy ones, yeah. All right. So I do work as a therapist, like doing like these kind of where I facilitate, so guiding someone's consciousness through, areas like, I take them through the terrain of their past or of their, inner atmosphere, and I guide them there because, you might not recognize what might look like something good might be a dangerous thing to touch in a way. And so it's nice to have a guide to walk with you through that. But the thing is, and this is the tendency, and this is something that it's because so many teachers and coaches have to make an income from it, that they don't actually teach the theory, or how the person how to map or map their own journey. They don't do that. So part of it is the error of the practitioner because of the culture around it. If you have to survive by selling client hours, then you're not really going to teach the person how to navigate their own map. But that has to be it. But if you're if you're really working to educate humanity, we have to teach each person how to navigate as skillfully as possible the inner dimensions of their beingness. Because if you require me, but I can only see you for one session a week, and I don't teach you how to navigate, and let's say on Friday something happens and you have a total meltdown, and I don't have time for you until Monday, you can destroy your entire life in a few days. So how am I actually helping you? Yeah, how am I actually helping you if I don't take the time to explain to you with very clear definitions, not vague innuendos, not mystery, very clear definitions? What is this terrain, and what is this thing you just ran into when you were, in the darkness, because you don't have enough light in there. In the darkness, you ran into something. Well, what is it? I need to teach you how to turn that light up to see it. Otherwise, I'm not really helping. And this is what I see a lot of times with these therapies is that the practitioner will touch a spot in the person that definitely needs to be touched and needs to be walked through and needs to be unveiled and handled. But if they don't teach them to become skillful, trust me, there's more areas. Yeah, you're not actually helping the person if you don't give them that information. Um, which is why I'm really happy to have a skincare company, so I can actually begin offering stuff for free, because most of the people that I find that need the work can't afford my services, and that makes it a really hard thing. And it's something I have struggled with a lot when I was working full time. Luckily, my business model was always to recover people and then refer their friends, because I don't really I can't lose my authenticity and enter into the, when I know that I should teach someone the theory and how to do something themselves, but I don't, because I keep, no, I don't do that. and that's a
Right.
hard place for the coaches and the yogis to really walk within, is you have to be good enough that you can actually solve the problem and that the person sends more people if that's going to be your career, because otherwise you're going to put your ethics out and then you will lose your actual ability to help people. Does that make sense? And that's a so you have a couple of things happening here. You have the innocence of the practitioner or the person wanting to learn coming in, and then you have the weighing of how do I navigate what's sincerely going to change this person's life, also while having enough resources to feed my Pomeranians.
Yeah.
How do I navigate that skillfully? And and it has to be, and that's the journey when I'm working this profession, which is why I really don't recommend this profession to many people. It's very hard.
Yeah.
It's not easy. If you're a responsible person, this is a
Yeah.
hard, it's like walking a razor's edge across an abyss to know where's the right place to put the next step.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have to have a lot of attention. Yeah, does that make sense?
Absolutely. Well said. And share a little bit more about the responsibility of ethics. I mean, you have just mentioned your skincare line, having ethics there, having ethics in your private practice with students one on one. And I would say it's something that our society, I think that's why we're here at this moment, humanity, is because there was been so much turning the head the other way, like, oh, I'll just, look the other way, or, oh, I'll just hold this back. That's what kind of even happens in modern day Chinese medicine. They didn't want to reveal the formulas because they wanted the person to come back and buy their formulas for fear they would just mix it on their own without realizing, more people will come, maybe, I don't know. So share a little bit about the ethics and how that can serve our humanity right now.
The downward spiral in our life always starts with a very small decision to violate our principles because we don't know how to solve a situation. Yeah. We don't know how to solve a situation. So we say, oh, well, in the simplest way, we can say, well, I'm hungry, so I steal. Okay. And we can look at this and say, if someone steals because they're hungry, but they have $1 million in the bank, they're still hungry. Maybe they didn't have their wallet with them. We would really judge that person in one way. But
Right.
now someone with no money in the bank and no resources steals and they're hungry, and we would judge that person a very different way. Both of the things are unethical steps, but
Right.
and and they're always done with this small little justification. Now, when it comes to being a teacher, yeah, the thing that you're now having to navigate is the anger of the people you're working with. If I push my students a little too hard, they'll get angry at me. Yeah, and so you're walking this line of like, how much can I get them to realize, and for me, I'm trying to prevent them to hold me on a pedestal because I'm essentially teaching them the nature of their humanity, which is something we all have. Yeah, it's not special to me. I just maybe have a little more clarity in some areas. So the question is, how do I navigate it without giving up? Because that definitely is something I struggle with now because I can't get people through things quick enough. There's so many justifications, and they know that they're their own healer, but they don't know how to heal. So I need to
Right.
show you how to heal yourself. But you're your own healer. So as soon as I start to push a little too much, I'm my own healer and I know best, and I don't want to collapse their viewpoint. It's important that a person feels
Right.
empowered that they can do it. Yeah. But at the same time, your method isn't working. How do you know if a method works? It
Yeah.
delivers a result. I had a woman that I'm working with, and she's so lovely, and she has so much past trauma and like just sadness and sadness and sadness, and she's a friend of mine, and she's like, I don't know what to do. I've been through 10 years of trauma processing, and I just have no hope, and she wants to run away from her life, and I said, well, I can handle that in a few weeks. She's just like, and I'm like, I know you're not going to believe me because most people don't have the skill set to do this. But for me,
Yeah.
it's very easy. It's very, very easy because I understand how you're here, and that the reason that you're here is not your spirit is broken. No, no, you've just gathered a few things that are not useful in a way, and you've put them together into a construct that feels like a hopeless prison. So in a few weeks, I just spoke with her yesterday, and she's like, I can't believe how much has changed in my life in just a few weeks. And I'm like, and she's like, I didn't believe you. I'm like, I know no one does, because most of the practitioners are operating that something that for you to get to a state of joy and to have hope in your life needs to take a really long time. A lot of processing and a lot of go. I'm like, no, no, we're wiping down the countertop. Now I can take a long time to wipe it down, or I can do it very, And so what's going on? We're cleaning stuff out of the vessel, and yes, it's very important. It's been with you a long time, and you haven't imagined your life without it. That's been the lens you see everything through. But then I just come in and I clean the lens, and you're like,
Yeah.
What? No, yeah. So if you understand how people are ending up in these states and you're skillful, you can get them out of the state very quickly. And so I don't even remember what the original question was.
Well, that you were explaining the ethics, because doing that versus not,
The ethics. Yeah. The
like,
ethics of it is I have to define what, so how do I find my ethics? I
yeah,
define what result I want. Yeah, I want to get to this person to a state where they
yeah,
feel good in their life, and then I do this as fast as they'll tolerate. Because
yeah,
life, you have maybe 100 years. Do we need
right.
to waste a decade of it crying into our pillow in confusion? Well, that's a big
Sorry.
business. It's a big business. Yeah, it's a big business. Yeah, and I see so many people just re-stimulating people's traumas and putting them there and be like, yeah, it's
Yeah,
good work. Yeah, you feel that. No, it's not good work, because I have an idea, and this is, I guess, maybe what's different, is that I know what a human, when they're in their real beingness of being a human, how
yeah,
that is. I know
yeah,
what your abilities are, and they're not supernatural abilities. The siddhis are your native natural state. They're not a
right.
supernatural state. And so with that viewpoint, I don't consider all the densities and heaviness and karmic impulses and compulsions and all the ways you're destroying, I don't consider them important or particularly strong.
Right.
It's not important. I just see that you can lose these things now as fast as the person goes, because the hardest thing of doing this is that people will hold to their problems. They love them. They'll tell
Yeah,
you, I want to get rid of this problem. I come in, I say, okay, I can talk to you for 2 hours and that problem will be gone. And they'll be like, what do you, I'm like, no, really. We want to get rid of it? I can do it in 2 hours, but you got to go with me. 2 hours, we can get rid of that whole thing, but you got to go with me. And now the dance you have to walk as a practitioner is, how do you, most people don't have enough willingness. They might say they don't like their problems, they want to get rid of this, but they're not actually willing to take
yeah,
each step and each step and each step. So they'll take 2 steps, they'll start to see an improvement, and they'll realize they're going to lose their companion of sadness that has been with them for so long.
yeah,
And what is your life going to be like if that sadness and that feeling bad about yourself all the time and all of those things which you think of as the true nature of reality, if they're gone, who are you going to be then? Well, that's the real problem. And that's why we have to find the right pace. And that's where
right.
the ethics come in, is that dialogue of you have to be wise enough, because you can only tell them what they're willing to experience. So you have to
Yeah,
be wise enough to spot what that is, and to not underserve, which is can be the tendency, because it can be a bit exhausting, because you just want to get people to a good place, and not overserve, because if you give them too much, they will break. And the
yeah,
mistakes that can happen, like if you're doing this kind of work and you make a mistake, they literally will manifest a death. And that's
mm,
why this work needs to, like, I've seen people manifest problems that are tremendous. So when I endeavor to work with someone, it's a big responsibility, and I'm in communication with them all the
yeah,
time, which is a lot, but that's the work. And if you're not willing
right.
to, like, put that work in front of my own, sometimes it's like I'm exhausted, it's super late, but I
Yeah,
got 3 people going through an intense process, and I chat them up. Luckily,
yeah,
I don't have to call, but if I do have to call, I write them, hey, how are you doing? If I
yeah,
get a non-response, or I get something where they're hiding, I just pick up the phone and I'm like, tell me. And that's what you
yeah,
have to do. And if you're not willing to do that, please don't touch this work.
yeah.
Please don't touch
Oh,
it.
yeah,
Because you can really harm a person, or just waste their time and their resources, all of which are unethical. You must
yeah,
become very skilled to do this work. So I don't know, that's my view on
yeah.
it.
Well, Yeah, and share a little bit more about the student or the client being ready, and then maybe from your vantage where maybe you notice that tenderness and how you might address that. If you like have a deep knowing, like, they're just not quite there yet. How you navigate that?
I watch very closely. I have a tremendous ability to focus and keep my attention on a person very intensely, but in a non-invasive way. So I just kind of rest my attention with them and I observe when I try to so it's a little bit like when I'm trying to facilitate someone to enter into a more positive waking state in their daily life. um, I push them a little bit and I see what the response is. So what I'm looking is for what's their actual emotional state, not what they pretend. I just push a little bit and I see their response, and I see, does the person have the resilience or the willpower, or do they collapse and go into their patterns? And I'm just kind of tracking that data point at, like, I push this much. At what point does the person collapse down into the automatic patterns that they have that are creating their sadness? And that gives me a kind of I call it like a gradient of how I'm gonna work with the person. And honestly, if I select the people I work with. I'm not available to everybody because there's certain people that to work on them is almost dangerous because they really, really actually don't want a good result. So they're in a certain band of emotion, and they're a certain way that
Yeah,
the more you touch it, that yeah, the more they're going to covertly try to destroy you. And
right.
while I know how to improve those people as well, it's a calculation of, like, I don't work with everybody. I have to notice that there are some qualities. So I do intake interviews with everybody, and I'm looking for this kind of hidden mechanism because I know how to handle it, but it's just going to take a long time and a lot of it's a lot. And so you have to always think, like, how do I take care of myself while navigating people's inner hell worlds? Yeah.
Yeah,
Because it's just like with a drowning person. If you try to rescue them, they're going to try to pull you under. So you better be
yeah,
skillful enough to recognize that situation. And if you're not, what you will see is that you'll get bad results and you'll get clients that actually will drag you down. And you have to be very aware of this. And so it's some people it's best not to touch because actually the negative pattern is more stable than if I start touching it, it can get all kinds of things will come out. And if I'm not
yeah,
going to be there for the whole process, it's a very
yeah,
much alchemical process. I'm not going to be there for that whole process because I can't tolerate what's going to come out because I don't feel like it.
yeah,
That's that I can't touch it. So I learned to spot that because I can track the time. I've been doing this a very
yeah,
long time. You learn to see what's going to come out when I squeeze this fruit, what juice is going to come out. And so, and that's where the
yeah,
wisdom, where the wisdom is. And there's this definite idea which you come across in the spiritual arts, that I love it when people are like, you charge so much for yoga, you charge so much for meditation. I say, no, meditation and yoga are free. Go do it. I'm not stopping you. But if you want me to guide you through it, yeah.
yeah,
Well, it's high value. I get a result, but I am not, like, the idea that a teacher or a master is a servant is a very strange one, and it's a new one that's only come about really recently. I am not a servant. In other
yeah,
words, you have all these twisted nature things, the twisting aberrations that are coming out of you. And I'm supposed to serve what? I'm serving the spirit in you, but I'm not going to serve these variants which are untrue manifestations of a, distorted Maya. I'm not going to serve that. And as a teacher, you have to be much stronger internally to navigate this with skill than the students. If you haven't made yourself so strong that you recognize what this is going to be, it will it will collapse you. And your job is to serve spirit, not to serve the whims of the person. Does that
yeah.
make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, and share from there because it's, um, you know, how to navigate. I'm just going to call it evil because as you were,
Evil?
evil.
Did you say Evil
E-
or ego? Sorry.
Evil, evil.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Because it feels right now when you're using the metaphor of the drowning person, lifeguard 101 is you better to have one person drown than two. Uh, right now, because of everything that's happened, it's as if I'm just labeling it evil, but darkness, whatever people want to call it, is really grasping at anything and everything that people want. So if you can just share a little bit about how to navigate that for a person on their day-to-day basis, how to protect themselves, because we're really like, it's like, and society not realizing what has been happening, and it's just coming up in and out everywhere. So it might be helpful for people and for instructors too that are teaching, because definitely on the mat in particular, or in a sit, these things will start wanting to get out or express themselves potentially, depending what's happening.
Okay. I love that you're just sending me all the softball questions. I really appreciate that. Define evil and how it's good. Okay, all right, good. No, I love it. It's good. It's good. All right, all right. Okay, so let's begin by just having a viewpoint on something that everyone is familiar with, like the image of the yin and yang symbol. Okay, so this is something everybody's familiar with, which is this essentially like this physical universe is composed of always two. Yeah, and that two becomes the multiplicity, but it's essentially dual forces. And what the secondary force is in you would call it yin. Yeah, and this is the surrendering force, the the I don't want you to misunderstand my language here because I'm indicating something, not giving a precise this is this. The death force, the collapsing force, an amorphous force, the passive force which follows whatever acts upon it. Okay? And then you have the primary force, which is yang. This is the resisting death force or life force, or you could say masculine force, but again, it's not exactly precise. I'm just indicating the solar force, the radiant force. And so you have these two kind of dual forces that merge together to create this beautiful universe. And they're constantly moving. You are neither. You are neither. You are a third thing. You are a spirit. Now, let's define spirit. My favorite definition for this that I find the most useful is a spirit is it's a no thing. It's not a thing. It's not an energy. It's not a thought. It's a no thing. Yeah, it's a nothingness. And this is what you see in the high yogic philosophy, which you're familiar with. And so, what is a no thing? It leads us to having to define the creator or God or whatever this is. And this creator is the best way I've seen to define it. It moves within the creation of others. It's an essence that moves within the creation of others. And it does this without preference or differentiation. And so you probably heard in different religions that where they say God is always with you, but we don't really understand that. So what is it? What does that actually mean? The creator or the God. I use God because it's a simple word and I speak a lot of words. So I'm just going to say God, but define it as you wish, has no problem being with you no matter what you do. So that means if from your willpower you decide to do horrible things and become a dark person to traumatize many, God goes with you. Why? Because it moves through the creation of others. It doesn't have a need to disparage. The sun shines indiscriminately on the tree, on the house, on the flower. It doesn't say, okay, I only shine on this one. Okay. So then now here we're left and we say, okay, well then, so now we have a sense there's good and evil. And either way, God goes with me, and I am a non-physical thing. So how do what is goodness? Well, goodness is that which promotes hope and life and love and connection, harmony, you know, uh, joy. And what is evil? Evil is a prison that crushes your soul and removes that hope from you. But both are always present. And you've all heard the paradigm of like the wolf on two shoulders. Which one do you feel? It's the same thing. We're looking at the duality. You must remember that you are neither. And what then we can get into this inactivity, and this is the big problem that I find in like the spiritual world, is that okay, if goodness is that which is harmonic, but now I have a conflict, and to resolve that conflict, maybe I need to become intimidating, maybe I need to yell a little bit, maybe I need to create an intensity. But that's not spiritual. I need to always be good and always be gentle and always be kind and always be forgiving and always be understanding. No, 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 no. You are neither. And for you to bring that into the world, you need to know how to navigate a situation truly for the best outcome. Now, if I want to build a house, I have to destroy a tree. Yeah. If I want to bake a cake, I have to break some eggs. Yeah. And so here we find that what's really required of a human being to become skillful in the world is discernment. And if you are afraid to destroy, you will never create. And that's what I see happening, is that people won't take responsibility for destruction. So I actually train this with a lot of my students, where I have them go and buy some inexpensive plates and break them. And it's really hard to get people to do this. I'm like, just go and like destroy something for the sake of destroying it, because if you can do that, you won't need to do it in your relationships compulsively. Yeah. If you can make peace with the destructive force, you become skillful in determining exactly how much force. As a martial artist, I know exactly the place where I can break your arm. As a yogi, I know exactly the place where your arm breaks. So I can use that same knowledge to heal or to harm. And if you're going to become skillful and actually bring goodness into the world, you have to know sometimes when you're dealing with criminals, you need to be terrifying. But if you can't do that because you think you're bad, well, then you're ineffective. If I'm walking down the street and I need to protect some people and I come across some bad people, but I can't do anything, well, am I really skillful? Was I good? And there's many ways we can argue this, but goodness is a discernment. And in this physical universe, not the spiritual universe, the physical universe, there is no perfect outcome. There's always going to be a little ash in your mouth. Yeah, the only perfection is in the higher realms. All the manifestations here will always have a secondary force. And the thing is that we have to learn to confront that. And what I'm seeing now in the world is that people, they can't see darkness or the secondary force correctly. They either react to it too much or too little. And so we see that the real issue is a lack of discernment, because to bring a goodness into the world, you have to navigate both the creative force and the destructive force skillfully. But you can only do this if you can see. So, does that make sense?
Absolutely. And what you're speaking, as you're speaking, it's just reminding me of, in Buddhist practices, yogic practices, Hindu practices, they have deities that are wrathful, and very much for that process, to, kind of bring something into check. There's many times I'll call it bring it into check. And so paint a little bit of an image for people when we bring, just similar to emotions, when we bring that yin and yang energy, so it's not so destructive or so like, with pink covered glasses on, that it's oblivious to what's going on over here. Because this is truly like the rebalancing, because there's been all this covert things happening in this world system that most people don't know about. And now it's coming up. And I would say it's acting out through most of humanity in ways maybe they don't even understand. So if you can share the balance of the two dancing together in harmony, and where you put some examples there, but take it a little bit further, so that people can feel, just even the example of anger, that's associated with our liver. It's not that anger's bad. There's a reason to command, Mama Bear does it. There's a reason to command someone's attention, because it detoxifies, it like shocks the system. So share a little bit, however you wish there, that how we can come into balance with those two forces.
So anger. So I study a lot of the emotional yoga. So we call this rasa yoga. Rasa means mood or flavor or taste, and the training is the ability to generate the emotion and stop it at whatever point. So anger we would call raudra, and anger can be rage, it can be anger, it can be frustration, it can be covert hostility, like hidden, like passive aggression. Yeah, which is a low gradient anger that seeks to destroy by appearing to do good. So all of these, I call them the anger band or raudra. And The warrior needs to know how to use anger, and as to what's the correct use, listen, you just become more and more skillful. So there are many people that use anger to get things done. They always are overcoming something they're pushing against, and it's not a wrong use, but you want to see if you're doing that, because living in the anger band, it creates, so in the auric field, when you're in the anger band, it creates these ridges. So in other words, incoming force, your force, they go like this. Like you think about like waves, if you're in a choppy sea, and you get a lot of these like ridges or spikes, and it's two forces coming in conflict with each other, different from like a flowing river or like dispersing energy. This can also happen with like the water analogy. So if you're using a lot of this anger band to live, you'll have a lot of these spikes or ridges, and what'll happen, a spike or a ridge stops the flow. So you're doing it to protect yourself, to stop something, but you stop all goodness from coming in. So the anger band is a protective band, and I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong, but you should be able to skillfully generate it. Most people's anger, their buttons on the outside. So they're going through life, someone comes along, they press the button, anger comes out. Put it on the inside, learn to generate it on your own, and then stop it, and then generate on your own and stop it. And this is a high level tantric practice. And when I'm in person, I demonstrate all the emotions to my class silently. I just create a wave of the emotion. Like when I do anger, they'll all start to sweat and their hair will stand up because it's really an intense wave. And you can make it big, and you get all these spikes, and it creates an electricity, especially when you do it in a certain way. So when it comes to, emotions, if we want to know how to stop them, learn to create them. The way
Yeah.
out is always in. Yeah, we have to learn to create it. Can you create joy? Hasya? How about, Shringara, the poetry of love and union, love and devotion that you see in like it's a big one in like the devotional yogas. Yeah, these are emotions that they're creating. And if you don't know of these emotions, then they're still affecting you,
Mhm.
but you
Uh-huh.
can't do much about it. Yeah, so this is known as Rasa Yoga. There's an excellent book called I think it's the Nine Yogas of Emotions. If anyone listening to this Googles it, you'll find it. They also have a website with some nice definitions. I recommend, learning about it. It's a good book. There's a few things missing in the higher practice, but it's perfect for everyone that's unfamiliar with this,
Yeah.
and it's highly useful.
Beautiful.
Was that
Well,
did I
so we're
answer
going to
the
close out.
question? I'm not sure.
You, it's like you did great. You're not in an oral exam.
Well, no, but
You're
I'd
so
like to. I like to
great.
be.
You're
I
amazing.
like.
Um,
I like. To
you're making sense and you're clear. So yeah, it's well, and when you're just to kind of wrap up this conversation on just emotion, uh, the word superhero came into my mind, and I always tell my own students, it's like amazing when you can learn how to like have those waves within yourself, like start and stop them, because then you realize what like you can master everything around you. um, you're not held hostage by anyone or anything. So if you can share for yourself what you've witnessed in yourself and others, that what comes on the other side of that, because if most of society is learning just to have feelings, there's that, and then what's on the other side of it for them.
Yeah. When I was studying Kabbalah a long time ago, I came across such a beautiful articulation of a very useful idea that I think is good to share. So the spiritual path is a path, but there are some things, but there's markers that show you if you're going in the right direction. And so the first thing is that 99.99% of humanity are what you would call receiving consciousness. In other words, they're craving attention, they're craving love, they're craving assets, they're craving acknowledgments, they're craving sensations. I mean, that's a big one. They're craving some sort of feeling or sensation, so they want to receive something. Now, that's actually not your natural state. You're a radiant God in a body. Yeah. So, something that's radiant gives attention, gives admiration, gives consideration, gives help, gives ability, gives love, because you don't need it. If you're giving it, you have it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the concept in Kabbalah that I found so lovely and such a clear articulation is you go from receiving consciousness to sharing consciousness. And when that happens, your attention is no longer trying to figure out who I am from looking at the shadows of my past and all the mistakes I've made. Yeah.
Yeah.
And looking for someone to feel better. This is receiving consciousness. So there's a shift that all of a sudden you become able to be with other people's problems. You're able to share without effort this light or this presence, and you enter into that. And when you enter into that, you don't really have problems anymore. You kind of have solutions. Life still needs handling, and your emotions totally change. You don't have the like. It's very very rare that I have negative emotions. I mean, sometimes I get a little pissed, yeah, but I also recognize it, right?
Yeah.
You actually end up because when you're helping others, when you're shining, when you're feeding this like light continuously through you, you're always full.
Mm.
So you don't feel like anything's missing. And so sharing consciousness means I'm not missing anything. I don't need to receive anything. In fact, I'm overflowing. And this is the mark of practice moving in the right direction, is that one changes from one state to the other. So this is an indication. If I'm in receiving, if I feel myself like I need this and I need that, it's I take a time out and I have a real look and I say, okay, what did I miss? Because I
Yeah.
know that that state is not the true, it's not the truest or the highest space. So this spiritual journey is one of you make a few steps forward and oftentimes you fall back, and you know you'll have an improvement or you'll reach a samadhi, a stable state of clear beingness. You'll reach one of these states, but they're unstable, so you fall out of it and you think that self-realization is now untrue. Nah, there's just a lot of things here that are seeking to get you to collapse the
Right.
spaces you put out, to get you to become smaller, feel bad about. There's a lot of things, and to become skillful, we have to learn about a lot of those things. And then you learn to, okay, wait a second. I'm feeling bad. I'm feeling needy. What's really going on? And how about I just, for no reason at all, without logically trying to dive, how about I just decide to become radiant and hold it 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 and okay, this is who I am now.
Yeah. Oh, well said. So I I could keep you on the line for about a couple hours. Uh, as we close out, we haven't even touched on what's going on uh, with your formula. I always say it backwards. Flawless
Formula
formula.
flawless.
Oh, I almost
Yeah.
said it right.
Formula
I always I
out of
almost said
yourself.
it right. Formulas. I always reverse it in my mind. I almost did it right, so it's almost there. Share for the listeners what you have cooking there because your products are amazing, and I think just the power of taking care of this topic where about emotions and all this. Uh, Accessing the skin is one way to really get yourself connected to how you feel and what's ready to come off, and if you're willing to even nourish yourself.
The emotions and your skin are intricately linked. Yeah, as you know, like if you feel shy or you feel embarrassed, the skin will like flush, or if you're afraid, you might get, all kinds of changes. So it's your skin is the largest organ on your body. And to just be frank about it, most of the skincare companies are just poison in a bottle. Like go ahead and look them up. There's a great website, Incidecoder.com. That's INCIDE coder.com. And yeah, it's a chemistry website where you can type in almost every product on the planet and look up their formulations. Now, most of the skincare is made. Listen, it's a pain in the butt to make things fresh all the time. Yeah, it is, and it requires a totally different business model that has a vision of like a higher thing. It's like making a fresh food. And you also have to educate people. So most of the products are made in large batches and they sit on shelves for a number of years. Now, would you like your salad to do that? So So why did I start this? Well, I had a lot of skin problems. I've had severe cystic acne. I've had age spots, hyperpigmentation. I started to get wrinkles from touring and teaching and talking all day.
Yeah.
Like really, and just the flying and the travel. And I've been formulating stuff since I think my late teens, and then I was in organic chemistry for a number of years. Um, so I always knew how to do it, but it's a pain in the butt to make all your formulations and to keep everything fresh and in stock. So I was trying to buy things as I traveled, and it gave a bad result. And when COVID hit, I made a decision so that I could touch my students in some way to begin to create products that actually work. They do what they say they're going to do. So we just regrow the tissues in a healthy way, following the cycles of life. And by providing like absolutely clear, clean nourishment. I do face care. Like we specialize a lot in anti-aging, but I also do acne care and rosacea and like some kind of extreme conditions as well, which oftentimes require emotional work and deeper work. The two go really hand in hand. Like I can give you products to, that'll make your wrinkles change, but if all day long you're crunching, you're squishing your
Right.
lips with frustration and furrowing your brow, well, we can only do so
Yeah.
much. We have to treat the whole person in their completeness. So I
Mm.
created all of this. Our body scrubs and our face scrubs are remarkable because no one on the planet puts this high quality ingredients into a scrub. But when you abrade the skin and then you have like the nourishment that literally feeds the cells, this is a profound process. And the quality of this organ, which is your external boundary, when this organ feels good, your emotions feel better, you feel more alive, more vital, you feel potential, you feel confident. Because as a woman, when I had to wear all that makeup to cover my acne, or when I had to wear makeup to teach because I was looking bad and I'm on camera a lot, I
Yeah.
felt gross. So the
Right.
whole goal, like why the name Formula Flawless, because we can make your skin so healthy, you don't, makeup becomes a downgrade, not an improvement. Yeah,
Yeah.
and this is the potential of all humans. You can have a healthy body. You can have a healthy body. We just
Absolutely.
have to take the
Yeah.
actions. And that is the knowledge of life that, Ayurveda is. So it's working with Ayurvedic principles, but I use much like higher quality ingredients that are available now that we live in a world where I can order, pomegranate oil from this country.
Yeah.
So I'm sourcing things that are like super, super. And my sourcing is one of the biggest things that we do. I'll test like 10 different variations of an ingredient until I
Mm.
find the one that's like
Pops. Yeah.
it just
Like,
pops. It's like, yeah. So, yeah, it's exciting. We just got our new website up, which makes it much easier for people to order. And I'm hoping to get the packaging done, which is a massive job because right now I'm just labeling it like Formula 3, F3,
yeah.
because I'm a lab. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, people want a more sophisticated branding, but with 100 products, like
Yeah.
labeling each one, we're looking at about $30,000. So
Yeah.
I'm slowly, yeah, we're slowly getting there, but like this is one of our biggest
I,
sellers. This is Formula 22, the eye cream, which I put
yeah.
on my whole face. It's so good. And
Yeah.
these we do right now. I'm doing the bath bombs in these cute little or sorry, not bath bombs, body scrubs in these
Yeah.
really nice jars that you can reuse. And you see all the rose
Oh,
flowers on
I have
top.
one.
Yeah, this is
I love scrubs. I have one in my shower. So,
the scrubs are a miracle. And then this guy, this is one of the best things I've ever made in my life. Our Formula 34, literally it's a skin resurfacing. It helps acne,
oh,
rosacea, and it melts into your skin. I need to send you some of this because you get in the
yeah.
shower, you wet your face, put it on, work it in, add a little more water. A couple of minutes later, you're just gonna like rinse it off. It
Oh,
melts in, and your skin totally, totally changes in quality. It's a miracle. It's one of the best things I've
no.
invented in my life because it works so effectively.
Yeah.
So,
Beautiful.
I'm super excited about it. Go ahead.
I said beautiful. Well, it is the reason I reverse the words is I would say your formulas are flawless. So it's flawless formula in my mind. All of it.
They're definitely made with a very high ethics. In other words,
Yeah.
all of our creams, I don't put a lot of nasty preservatives, so you put them in the fridge. And I refuse to do that because while it is a bit of a pain in the butt to communicate to people, why, and that it's actually a good
Yeah.
thing, I'm not going to make anything I wouldn't use, and I don't put poison on my skin anymore. It's a new
Yeah.
era. I don't do that. So everything is
Yeah.
kind of formulated with that vision.
Beautiful. Well, Ray, as always, it's so beautiful to have you here. I appreciate you being here.
Thank Thank you so much for having me. And I do have a new a monthly free every third Monday for the fall. I'm going to be doing a free lecture on mind science and meditation that'll have some practices and a Q&A. And that is it's yogaforthemind.org.
Okay,
Yoga
we'll put
of the
the
mind.
link below. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect with this. That's wonderful. Your amazing wealth of information and yeah, I call you Buddha with the stick.
I'll take it. I'll take it. The Buddha with a stick, huh?
Yeah, which is needed. I like that about you.